Welcome back to Insights That Matters, the show that takes you deep into the most fascinating parts of the business world. Today, we're diving into the world of shipbuilding. Specifically, we're looking at a company making waves in India, Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited, MDL for short. To help us navigate this deep dive, we have an expert with us who really knows finance and the Indian shipbuilding scene. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. I'm excited to dig into MDL. They have such an interesting history and an even more exciting future.
Absolutely. So you've been looking into some recent news on MDL, and I'm really interested in what you found. What's got you so interested in this shipbuilding giant?
Well, first off, their recent performance has been quite impressive. Really strong results over the past couple of years. That's always a good sign. But the thing that really caught my eye was their upcoming delivery schedule. They're on track to deliver 3 big vessels by the end of December, a Scorpion-class submarine, a destroyer for Project 15 Bravo, and a frigate for Project 17 Alpha.
Wow, that's a pretty big lineup. A submarine, a destroyer, and a frigate, all in just a few months. That's going to be a huge logistical challenge.
It definitely is. It really shows how efficient they are. And what's really amazing is that one of the destroyer deliveries might actually be a couple of months ahead of schedule.
Now that is impressive, especially in an industry known for complicated projects and tight deadlines. Delivering ahead of schedule is a huge achievement. But I'm curious, what does this mean in terms of revenue for MDL? We're talking about some serious money here.
Oh, absolutely. These are not your average everyday deliveries. A lot of the revenue is recognized as the project goes along, but that final delivery, it's really crucial. It brings in the remaining amount, and it opens up possibilities for post-delivery revenue, like warranties and potential repair contracts.
Right. So it's not just about building and delivering. There's a whole life cycle of revenue after that. That makes sense. But let's talk about the money they already have. Their cash balance is pretty good, right? We're talking thousands of crores, just so our listeners know. 1 crore is 10 million rupees, so we're talking billions of rupees here.
You're absolutely right. Their cash balance is very healthy, somewhere around 4,000 crore rupees. And what's interesting is that they're planning to invest a good chunk of that, about 5,000 crore rupees in the coming years, to increase their capacity.
So they're not just sitting on a pile of cash. They're reinvesting it to grow. That's a pretty clear sign. They're confident in their future. But where are they planning to focus this expansion?
A big part of it is going towards building larger vessels. They're anticipating a change in demand, and they want to be ready for it.
That's a good strategy. You got to know where the market's headed and make sure you're in a position to benefit. It's like they're saying, we're not just playing the game, we're here to win it.
Yeah.
But let's look a little deeper into their plans for the future. What kind of orders are they looking at? What's coming down the pipeline in the years ahead?
Their order book's looking really good. Gives us a good idea of what they're aiming for. They're not just trying to complete the orders they have. They're really pushing for growth, both in India and internationally. And it's not just defense. They're looking at commercial shipbuilding, too, even ship repair.
So they're not limiting themselves. They're keeping their options open. Smart strategy in such a fast-changing industry. But what kind of projects are they going after? Can you give us some specifics?
Well, in defense, they're looking at repeat orders for some current projects, like Project 17 Bravo. Basically, it's a continuation of their destroyer program, and they're also looking at the next generation of destroyers when it comes to submarines. There's a good chance they'll get orders for 3 more Scorpion-class submarines, especially because they've already been nominated for them.
More destroyers and submarines. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
What about the existing ships? Any plans for upgrades or modernizations?
Yeah, definitely. There's a good chance they'll refit the existing Scorpion subs, maybe by adding air-independent propulsion systems. Right.
Or
AIP.
I've heard of AIP. But to be honest, need a refresher. Can you explain what it is and why it's such a big deal for MDL?
Sure. AIP is really important for submarines because it lets them stay underwater for much longer without having to come up for air. It makes them harder to detect and gives them a much bigger range. And this is important for MDL because India's Navy is getting bigger, especially in the Indian Ocean. Having submarines that can stay underwater for longer is a really big advantage. And MDL is making sure they can meet that need.
So MDL isn't just building ships. They're building a vital part of India's defense. That must be something they're proud of. But getting these contracts must be really competitive. What makes MDL stand out?
You're right. It's a tough market. But MDL has a few advantages. First, their track record's really solid. They deliver high-quality ships on time and often ahead of schedule. That builds trust with clients.
Reliability is definitely a big plus. What about technology? Are they keeping up with the latest advancements?
For sure. Going for AIP technology is a good example. They're not afraid to use the latest and greatest, and their focus on getting bigger shows they're not just happy with what they can do now. They're always trying to improve and grow.
So they're planning for today and tomorrow. Very smart. But these defense projects sound expensive. Can you give us an idea of how much money we're talking about?
To give you an example, the current destroyer order, which was placed in 2011, was worth a massive 34,000 crore rupees.
34,000 crores. That's a huge amount. And considering these new projects, with bigger and more advanced ships, the value must be even higher.
Exactly. And you have to think about inflation, too. These upcoming orders are enormous, and it shows the kind of impact MDL could have on the Indian economy.
MDL is a big player in shipbuilding, but they're not just focusing on these huge defense contracts, are they? They've also got some big projects from ONGC, haven't they? The oil and gas company?
That's right. They've got 3 offshore projects from ONGC, worth around 7,000 to 8,000 crore rupees. Those projects should add to their revenue over the next 2 years.
So they have a mix of big defense projects and steadier projects from the energy sector. That mix should help them balance their income and reduce the risks of only depending on defense contracts.
Exactly. It's a clever strategy.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. They have a great track record. They're using cutting-edge technology. They have a strong order book and a mix of projects.
Yeah.
But what about their profits? Are these projects making good money for MDL?
That's the big question. MDL has been making really good profits lately, but it's important to remember that the typical profit margin for shipbuilding is around 12% to 15% at the PBT level, which includes other income, like from their fixed deposits.
So their margins are higher than usual right now.
That's right. These high margins are partly because they're finishing projects for less than they initially thought, which again shows they're efficient and good at managing costs. But as they start new projects, those margins will probably get closer to the industry average.
That makes sense. High margins are great, but it's good to be realistic about what will last. So they're delivering early, managing costs well, and winning big new projects. What's next for MDL? Are they just going to keep doing what they're doing? Or do they have even bigger plans?
Well, from what we've seen, MDL isn't the type to just sit back and relax. They're planning to expand their capacity in a big way, which suggests they have an even bigger vision for the future.
That sounds interesting. Can you give us a preview of what they're planning?
They want to build 2 new facilities, one for building and repairing ships, and the other just for repairs.
2 new facilities. That's a big undertaking.
It is. The first one will be on a 15-acre plot right next to their current shipyard. They're going to build a graving dry dock there. With everything else they need, this expansion will really increase what they can do.
So a 15-acre expansion is pretty big, but they're not stopping there, are they? What about the second facility?
The second one's even bigger. It's on a 40-acre plot near Nahavasheva. That's a major port and industrial area near Mumbai. This one will have a much bigger dry dock, so MDL will be able to handle ships that are even bigger than the ones they build now.
They're really scaling up their operations. But what does this mean for their actual capacity? Can you put it into perspective for us?
Well, right now they can build 11 submarines and 10 warships at the same time. These new facilities will basically double that, and they'll be able to build much bigger ships.
That's a big change. Doubling their capacity and building bigger ships. It's clear MDL is thinking big. But is this all because of the defense contracts we talked about?
The defense contracts are a big part of it. But MDL is also getting ready for growth in commercial shipbuilding, and they're looking at exporting too. These new facilities will give them the flexibility and capacity to work with a wider range of clients and projects.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Diversifying and creating more opportunities for the future. Makes sense, especially in the global shipbuilding industry.
Exactly. And there's another trend that's changing the industry: green shipping. This is where things get really interesting for MDL.
Green shipping. I've heard the term, but I'm not really sure what it means. Can you tell us more?
Basically, green shipping is about reducing the environmental impact of shipping. It means using technologies and practices that lower emissions, make ships more energy efficient, and make the whole process more sustainable.
So it's like the eco-friendly movement for ships. But what does this have to do with MDL? Are they involved in green shipping?
They are, and it looks like they're serious about it. They've already got an order for a hybrid ship from a European client, which shows they're willing to use these new technologies.
That's impressive. They're actually doing it, not just talking about it. But is there really a market for this kind of green technology? Or is it just a niche thing?
It's not a niche anymore. The demand for green shipping is going up fast because of environmental rules, people wanting eco-friendly products. and a global push for sustainability. The Indian government is supporting green shipping too, with financial incentives and policies.
So MDL is in a good position to take advantage of this trend. They have the experience, the expertise, and now with these expansions, they'll have the infrastructure to make a real impact in green shipping. But what about their profits? Could going green affect their margin?
That's a good question, and investors are watching closely. There are a couple of ways to look at it. Using new green technologies and processes might cost more at first, which could put pressure on margins in the short term, but in the long run, being able to offer green solutions could give them an edge, and they might be able to charge more. So it's a balancing act. But overall, I think focusing on green shipping is a good move. It fits with the global trend towards sustainability and their goals for the future.
I agree. It's like they're playing a complex game, balancing short-term financial needs with long-term strategic goals. But how does MDL's approach to green shipping fit into the Indian shipbuilding industry as a whole? Are they leading the way, or are other companies catching up?
That's a really interesting question, actually. It makes you think about how India is positioning itself. In the global shipbuilding market, MDL is definitely one of the leaders in green shipping. But they're not the only ones. The Indian government has been pushing for sustainability in shipping, with different programs and incentives, so other shipyards and companies are starting to look at eco-friendly solutions too. I'd say MDL is at the forefront, but the whole industry is moving in that direction, which is a good thing.
That's great to hear. It's one thing for one company to go green, but it's a much bigger impact when the whole industry shifts. It creates a ripple effect. But I'm also interested in the people involved. MDL is a major employer in India. How are these changes in technology and strategy affecting their workforce? Are they training and upskilling their employees to meet the demands of green shipbuilding?
That's a really important point. You're right. MDL employs a lot of people, and their skills need to change as the company changes, from what I've seen. They're being proactive about it. They're investing in training to give their employees the skills they need to build and maintain these new ships, including the ones with green technology. It's a good situation for everyone. It makes sure their workers stay competitive, and it creates a culture of innovation and sustainability within MDL.
That's fantastic. It's not just about building ships, it's about supporting the people who built them. But let's step back for a minute. What does MDL's story tell us about the Indian shipbuilding industry overall?
I think MDL is a good example of what's happening across the industry. It's a story of ambition, innovation, and a commitment to staying ahead. They don't just want to be part of the global market, they want to lead it. And they're doing that by investing in technology, expanding what they can do, and focusing on sustainability. I think their success will inspire other companies to step up their game and help India become a shipbuilding powerhouse.
That's a great point. It's not just about one company. It's about the whole industry growing and the good they can do for the country's economy and its place in the world.
Exactly. And it shows how important it is to have companies like MDL that are willing to push boundaries, take risks, and find new ways forward.
Well said. This deep dive has been really insightful. We've covered a lot. From MDL's strong financials and order book, to their expansion plans, their adoption of green shipping, and their commitment to their employees. It's clear they're a company that's moving forward, driven by a vision to be a leader in the global shipbuilding industry.
It's been great talking about this with you. MDL is definitely a company to watch in the coming years. It'll be interesting to see how they develop.
Definitely. And for our listeners, we encourage you to learn more about MDL and the Indian shipbuilding industry in general. There's a lot of innovation and growth happening there, and this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. There's so much to discover.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited. We hope you found it interesting and helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might be interested in the future of shipbuilding. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.